People just don't understand me. They frown and shake their heads. They wonder if I'm crazy or if I'm just off my meds. I'm shunned and shamed at every turn, but I hold my head up high. I'm proud to be just who I am, and here's the reason why. I'm a true believer, full of holiday cheer. When November rolls around, I kick it into gear. Call me a fanatic, say I'm way over the top. But when I hear those carols start to play, I hope they never stop. I got it bad, I'm just a diehard. I keep a tree with lights the whole year round in my yard. If I could, I'd like to run the rooftops right where Rudolph ran. Got my ugly sweater pressed and ready, I'm a Christmas fan. Christmas is the season, the whole world comes alive. 12 days ain't enough for me, I want 365. Yeah, I'm a nut for Christmas, I want snow clouds in the fall. I got a life-sized autographed poster of Saint Nick up on my wall. Some say I'm strange, deranged and balmy. If you need an eggnog recipe, just call me. When it comes to putting lights on the house, you know I've got a plan. They'll see it clear from outer space, 'cause I'm a Christmas fan. And stockings by the fire and a pie made up of can. I love every little thing about Christmas time, 'cause I'm a Christmas fan. I'm that snowball, silver bell, jingle bell, gingerbread, hallelujah, mistletoe, tinsel, tannenball, goodwill, eggnog, three kings, frankincense, partridge, pear tree, sleigh ride, sugar plum, candy cane, carolyn, figgy pudding, fruitcake. Okay, well, maybe not fruitcake. I'm a Christmas fan. Christmas fan.
It's July.
One, two, three. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh!
Well, welcome everybody to Christmas with the Oaks. And just get ready, if you got a bell somewhere you can ring it. And you can get a set of keys. If you got something hanging on your tree, I see some Christmas bells hanging on our tree. Get ready to join us on the chorus here, and let's just sing together and make this day merry. Okay, ready? Oh, oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Merry Christmas and welcome. Okay, now we're going to do what's called an audience participation song. So get ready to move your hands and your arms a little bit. You can do this being seated, or you can get up and move around if you want to, but this is an old Christmas song. Who knows how long it's been around, but I hope you enjoy it. Get your kiddies ready, get your family together, and enjoy us as we sing this song. John Thomas is going to tell us the motions, and we'll kick in here. Get ready. Let's go.
All right, we're going to sing Children Go Where I Send Thee, and it's got 10 numbers in it, and we've got motions for every number. So the first motion is a baby in their arms. And so I'm going to sing a line, oh, I forgot my note. Children go where I send thee, and then you all sing,
How shall I send thee?
and then we sing, I'm going to send thee one by one, one for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. And two is Paul and Silas. So you sing two by two, and you put your hands together because Paul and Silas were chained together in prison. So we sing, Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee two by two, two for Paul and Silas, one for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Three is the Hebrew children. So put your hand on your head like you're wearing a yarmulke, and you sing, Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee three by three, three for the Hebrew children, two for Paul and Silas, one for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Now I'm gonna teach you the other 30. I'm just kidding. We'll do 10. All right. 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 5 for the gospel preachers. 6 for the 6 that never got fixed. 7 for the 7 that came down from heaven. Just throw your hands in the air and wave them around like you just don't care. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. 9 for the 9 that dressed so fine. 10 for the 10 commandments. And you just hold those tablets like Moses coming off the mountain, all right? So we got it. You ready to do it?
Let's go.
Let me get our note back. Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee one by one, one for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee two by two, two for Paul and Silas, one for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee three by three, three for the Hebrew children, two for Paul and Silas, one for the little bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee 4 by 4, 4 for the 4 that stood at the door, 3 for the Hebrew children, 2 for Paul and Silas, 1 for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee 5 by 5, 5 for the gospel preachers, 4 for the 4 that stood at the door, 3 for the Hebrew children, 2 for Paul and Silas, 1 for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee 6 by 6, 6 for the 6 that never got fixed, 5 for the gospel preachers, 4 for the 4 that stood at the door, 3 for the Hebrew children, 2 for Paul and Silas, 1 for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Children go where I send thee.
How shall I send thee?
I'm gonna send thee 7 by 7, 7 for the 7 that came down from heaven, 6 for the 6 that never got fixed, 5 for the gospel preachers, 4 for the 4 that stood at the door, 3 for the Hebrew children, 2 for Paul and Silas, 1 for the itty bitty baby, born, born, born in Bethlehem. Children go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm gonna send thee 8 by 8. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. 7 for the 7 that came down from heaven. 6 for the 6 that never got fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers. 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 3 for the Hebrew children. 2 for Paul and Silas. 1 for the itty bitty baby. Born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm gonna send thee 9 by 9. 9 for the 9 that dressed so fine. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. 7 for the 7 that came down from heaven. 6 for the 6 that never got fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers. 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 3 for the Hebrew children. 2 for Paul and Silas. 1 for the itty bitty baby. Born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm gonna send thee 10 by 10. 10 for the 10 commandments. 9 for the 9 that dressed so fine. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. 7 for the 7 that came down from heaven. 6 for the 6 that never got fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers. 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 3 for the Hebrew children. 2 for Paul and Silas. 1 for the itty bitty baby. Born in Bethlehem. He was born in Bethlehem. I don't know about that last note.
I don't know.
Let's try that last note again. He was born in Bethlehem. That was a little closer.
It'll work.
It'll
With
work.
the piano.
It'll work. Okay.
Just listen to those winter winds. They're saying we could meet our friends for sledding, skis, a snowball fight. That's something we could do tonight. Or we could simply stay right here. We've seen our friends enough this year. Let's pull the blinds and lock the door and listen to that fireplace roar. Every cloud in the sky is snowing. Every log on the fire is glowing. Your hands are cold and your cheeks are rosy. Wouldn't you like to get comfy, cozy? The music's mellow and the crooner's crooning. Sounds like a melody made for spooning. Before our opportunity goes, we better make time for comfy, cozy. Since there's no one here but you and me, may I suggest whatever you're suggesting? I'll agree. Every touch of your hand is thrilling. Every beat of my heart is willing. The scene is set, so I propose we snuggle up tight and comfy, cozy. Since there's no one here but me and you, I'm thinking that the things I'm thinking you are thinking too. The mood is right and our hearts are fluttered. The door is locked and the window shuttered. Ain't no neighbors gonna get nosy? Why don't we get comfy cozy? Comfy cozy. Comfy cozy. Comfy cozy.
Well, hello friends, and welcome to the Tommy Oaks household. I'm Tommy Oaks. That fella sitting beside me was John Thomas Oaks, my oldest son, and beside him was my wife Patricia. And this is our living room and our Christmas tree, and it's Christmas Day 2023. And wherever you are, we hope you're having a fine Merry Christmas. And if you want to take a little time and share with us, we'd be glad to have you to come and share. So maybe get you a hot chocolate, maybe a coffee, maybe a piece of pumpkin pie, or whatever it is you've been eating today. You might munch on something. You might want to sing along. You might just want to turn the lights off and cuddle down. I don't know, whatever you would like to do. We hope to make the day a little better by just sharing some of it together. All right? Back in the 70s, I can't remember the exact date, there was a fellow by the name of Brendan Manning told a story about traveling near Christmas. I think it was close to Christmas Eve. And wherever he was going, he had to go through the Chicago O'Hare Airport. Now, if you've ever gone through Chicago O'Hare, you know that it's one of the busiest airports in the country. And he said on this particular evening it was busier than ever because a blizzard had moved in and many people were caught in the airport. He said up on the board, flights were just showing canceled. All the counters had people lined up at them trying to figure out alternate travel plans. All of the rental agencies had people lined up trying to rent cars, and all the limos and all the taxis were extremely busy, and every gate had all kinds of irate people waiting at it. And he said when I got to my gate, it was no exception, because there were people there who were on pins and needles, fussing and fuming and fretting and nervous and all upset, all except, he said, for over in the corner of the gate where I was to take off from but probably wouldn't, there was a little old lady. And he said she was sitting there just smiling, seemed like she was giggling at things. She was very peaceful, swaying back and forth like every now and then she was singing. He said I was so intrigued I had to go find out. So he said I went over to that lady and I said, ma'am, excuse me, you don't know me and I don't know you, but I could not help but observe that there's so many uptight people here at this gate, so many people all upset, but you seem to be very happy and you seem to be just having a good time. You aren't stressed out at all, are you? She said, no sir, I'm not. He said, well, what's going on with you? She said, well, I gotta tell you. She said, it's Christmas and that baby Jesus, he make me laugh. Well, that baby Jesus make me laugh too. And we hope you have some laughs with us tonight. We hope you just enjoy your time with us. Well, to help you laugh a little bit, we got a few Christmas knock jokes we're going to share with you as soon as I can get John Thomas back up here on camera. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Donut.
Donut who?
Donut open until Christmas.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Claus.
Claus who?
Claus, I can't wait any longer.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Hannah.
Hannah who?
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Dexter.
Dexter who?
Dexter holds a boughs of holly.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Pudding.
Pudding who?
Putting my best foot forward.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Yeah.
Yahoo!
And see, you're getting excited.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Honda,
Honda who?
on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Holly.
Holly who?
Holly up and help me decorate.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Tank,
Tank who?
thank you for all the presents.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Olive.
Olive who?
Olive the other reindeer.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Ho, ho.
Ho, ho, who?
My Santa impression needs a little bit of work.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Freeze.
Freeze who?
Freeze, a jolly good fellow.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Heaven?
Heaven who?
Haven't you heard enough?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Ammonia.
Ammonia who?
Ammonia trying to be funny.
Knock, knock.
Who's there? Frankfurter. Frankfurter who? Frankfurter Christmas knock knock jokes.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Murray.
Murray who?
Merry Christmas to all and to all a good night. Well, friends, we want to pay tribute for a moment to one of those all-time favorite Christmas programs, which would be Charlie Brown Christmas. You might remember that moment when Linus is standing in the school auditorium and he tells Charlie Brown, "This is what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown." And he reads a passage from the Bible, from Luke chapter 2. We want to share that passage with you right now. And then you might also remember that moment in that sweet little program where the children are all standing around their little old Christmas tree, and we have our own little Charlie Brown tree here that will be around, and they hum a carol and sing one line of it. So if you're in a humming mood, feel free to hum. If you know the passage, feel free to quote it. If you don't, you want to look it up in a Bible. It's in Luke chapter 2, and here we go.
And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one to his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. Ooh, 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 Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King.
los pasillos, decora los pasillos, decora los pasillos, decora los pasillos.
This is one of my favorite Christmas poems. It's called The Cremation of Sam McGee by Robert Service. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold, and the Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. And the northern lights have seen weird sights, but the weirdest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge when I cremated Sam McGee. Now, Sam McGee was from Tennessee, where the cotton blooms and blows. Why he left his home in the South to roam round the pole, God only knows. He was always cold, but the land of gold seemed to hold him like a spell. Yet he'd often say in his homely way that he'd sooner live in hell. On a Christmas day, we were mushing our way over the Dawson Trail. Talk of your cold, through the parka's fold, it stabbed like a driven nail. And if our eyes would close, our lashes froze till sometimes we scarce could see. It wasn't much fun, but the only one to whimper was Sam McGee. That very night, as we lay packed tight in our robes beneath the snow, and the dogs were fed and the stars o'erhead were dancing heel and toe, he looks at me and, "Cap," says he, "I'll cash in this trip, I guess. And if I do, I'm hoping that you won't refuse my last request." Well, he looked so low that I couldn't say no, and he said with a sort of a moan, "It's this cursed cold, and it's got right hold till I'm chilled clean down to the bone. But 'tain't being dead, it's the awful dread of the icy grave that pains. So I want you to swear that foul or fair, you'll cremate my last remains." Well, a pal's last need is a thing to heed, and I swore I would not fail. And we started on at the streak of dawn, but he looked ghastly pale. He crouched in that sleigh, and he raved all day of his home in Tennessee. And before nightfall, a corpse was all that was left of Sam McGee. There wasn't a breath in that land of death, and I hurried horror-driven, with a corpse half hid that I couldn't get rid because of a promise given. He was lashed to the sleigh, but he seemed to say, "You may tax your brawn and brains, but you promised true. Now it's up to you to cremate my last remains." Well, a promise made is a debt unpaid, and the trail has its own stern code. In the days to come, though my lips were dumb, in my heart how I cursed that load. Through the long, long night and the lone firelight, while the huskies round in a ring howled out their woes to the homeless snows, oh, how I loathed that thing. And every day that quiet clay seemed to heavy and heavier grow. Yet on I went, though the dogs were spent and the grub was getting low. The trail was bad and I felt half mad, but I swore I wouldn't give in, and I'd often sing to that hateful thing, and it hearkened with a grin. Till I came to the marge of Lake LaBarge, and there a derelict lay. It was jammed in the ice, but I saw in a trice it was called the Alice May. And I looked at it, I thought for a bit, then I looked at my frozen chum. Then "Here," says I, with a sudden cry, "is my crematorium."
Some planks I tore from the cabin floor, and I heaped the fuel higher. Some coal I found that was lying around, and I lit that boiler fire. The furnace roared and the flames just soared, such a blaze you seldom see. Then I burrowed a hole in that glowing coal, and I stuffed in Sam McGee. Then I made a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so. And the heavens scowled and the huskies howled and the wind began to blow. It was icy cold, but the hot sweat rolled down my face and I don't know why. And that greasy smoke in an inky cloak went streaking across the sky. Now I just don't know how long in the snow I wrestled with grisly fear, but the stars came out and danced about ere again I ventured near. I was sick with dread, but I bravely said, I'll just take a peek inside. By now he's cooked, and it's time I looked, and the door I opened wide. And there sat Sam, all cool and calm in the heart of the furnace roar, and he wore a smile you could see a mile, and he said, please shut the door. It's fine in here, but I greatly fear you'll let in the snow and storm. Since I left Plum Tree down in Tennessee, it's the first time I've been warm. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have seen weird tales that would make your blood run cold. The Northern Lights have seen strange sights, but the strangest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Labarge when I cremated Sam McGee.
You know, there's a song out there that plays a lot in the airways this time of the year called It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. And it certainly is a very wonderful time of the year. It's also a most unusual time of the year, don't you think? For one reason, the reason we have Christmas is something really unusual has happened to our world. You know what I mean? I think a lot of you do. But at the same time, there are many unusual things happen about this time of the year, and some of them have happened to me, and maybe some of them have happened to you too. One of the most unusual things happened to me when I was 12 years old, and I want to tell you a story about this, and I call this the story of the most unusual Christmas dinner I ever had. I had that dinner at my grandparents' house. I associate a lot of my good memories from Christmas about my grandparents. For one reason, I spent a lot of Christmases at my grandparents' house. And it wasn't just a house. It was a log cabin. Yeah, I mean, it was a real log cabin. My grandfather had built that cabin. It was in the mountains of upper East Tennessee. It was on a hillside, and down in the valley below was a river. My grandfather's name was Amos Plumroy Benfield, but we all called him Daddy Amos. And my grandmother's name was Mary Cuthbertson Benfield, but we all called her Nanny. And some of my best memories are at Nanny and Daddy Amos's house. There are so many wonderful memories there. I remember that it was a very small house. Let's see, it had 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms. That's all it had. The one room was a living room, and it had the stove in it. The other room was a kitchen. There was a stove in the kitchen too. Both of them were wood stoves. Now the kitchen was hot when there was cooking in there, and the living room was hot when there was a fire in that stove. Those other 2 rooms were ice cold. And if you went to bed at night, you had to depend on Nanny because she helped you out a lot. Let me tell you how she helped. She put a rock on that wood stove and let it get good and hot. And then about bedtime, she'd wrap that rock up in a blanket, and she'd go in your bedroom and slide that rock down to the bottom of your bed, and you'd run into that cold bedroom, and you'd put your feet down on that hot rock, and it would keep you warm all night long. I remember going to bed, getting up, hearing my grandmother dance in the kitchen to wake herself up. And I guess some of the best memories I have, and maybe you have them too, is the food. It seems like grandmothers have a way of cooking, don't they? Mine did, and I would guess maybe yours did too. And this meal, well, this one particular meal when I was 12 was a real challenge for Nanny, and I'm going to tell you about how much of a challenge it was, because as I said, I consider this probably the most unusual Christmas dinner I ever ate. Well, the whole year that year was an unusual thing. It really was. For one thing, the winter, the year before that year, the winter was cold. It got really cold. I mean, it got really cold that winter. Really cold. And you may ask, how cold was it? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'll tell you a little bit about how cold it was that winter. It was so cold, if you wanted to talk, you couldn't do it outside. The only way you could talk outside is if you stood next to a fire, and really you had to be careful inside and make sure you were next to a stove, because otherwise your words would just freeze and hang out there in the air. Or you had to carry a pair of pliers with you, so in case words got stuck in your mouth, you had to pull them out and lay them somewhere they'd thaw out so people could hear it. Well, we found one rooster out in the hen house who died because he choked to death on about 6 inches of crow that got frozen down in his throat. That was really cold. One day I dropped a comb on the ground. I bent over to pick it up, and the teeth of that comb were chattering. It was so cold. Well, how cold was it? I'll tell you. I went to town one day and I found a politician down there with his hands in his own pockets. And I'll tell you, that was a cold day. It was a cold winter. We had to eat our soup with a fork and an ice pick. It was really, really cold. And then to change it, that spring, it got really hot. I mean, it got really hot. It was really hot that spring. And you might ask, how hot was it? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you how hot it was. It was so hot, we had to feed the chickens cracked ice to keep them from laying hard-boiled eggs. Now, that was hot, wasn't it? We had to boil water to cool it down. The sunflowers along the road picked themselves up and replanted themselves underneath trees. That was a hot summer, and because of it, it got really dry. I mean, it got dry.
How dry was it?
Well, I'm glad you asked how dry it got. It got so dry that all the cows started giving powdered milk. We had a plum tree, but the only thing the plum tree would grow was prunes. I mean, it was so dry that summer that the Baptists went to sprinkling, and the Methodists just used a damp rag. I'll tell you what, that was one dry summer. But it got offset later on at the end of the summer, at the beginning of fall, because it started raining then, and it got really, really wet. I mean, it was really, really wet.
How wet was it?
Well, you want to know? I'm glad. Now, I'm really not going to elaborate on how wet it was, but I will say this. We went coon hunting one night, and it was so wet that our dogs treed 6 catfish. Now, that was wet, wasn't it? Well, that's just to get you to the late fall, going on Christmas. We were getting late in the fall, getting towards the beginning of the Christmas season there. That's when this most unusual thing happened. I went on a hunt with Daddy Amos. Now, Daddy Amos loved to hunt. He loved the forest and the wilderness, and he loved to hunt and fish, and he was really, really good at it. As a matter of fact, he was so good at it that he kept the whole family in meat all year long. There were 5 daughters in that family. They had 5 different families, and all 5 of them had freezers, and all 5 freezers were full of either wild game or fish. He just loved to hunt and fish, and he supplied all of us with all the meat. We never had to go to the grocery store and buy any meat, except on the holidays sometimes they'd go get something special, like this one particular Christmas. Nanny, I happened to be staying up there, and Nanny got up one morning and said to Daddy Amos, we probably ought to go to the store this week. He said, why? She said, well, it's going on Christmas and I need to get a turkey. Well, he said, we don't need to do that. There's turkeys out in the wilderness. I'll go get one out there. Now, I meant to tell you that what a good hunter Daddy Amos was, and that's why we had a lot of confidence that we wouldn't have to go to the store. As he got older and older, he got so that he would only take 3 bullets with him when he'd go hunting. And he could deliver on those 3 bullets. I remember him saying more than once, any man that can't feed his family on 3 bullets is just not worth calling himself a hunter. But he could do it. He'd just put 3 bullets in his pocket, take his hunting rifle out, and he'd always come back with plenty of game. Well, on this occasion, when Nanny had said, we need to go to the grocery store to get a turkey, and he had said, no, we can get one in the wilderness. She said, well, just go get one. He said, okay. And I was staying up there, and I said, well, Daddy Amos, can I go with you? And he said, yeah. I said, go over there at the cabinet where he kept his ammunition. He said, get me 3 bullets. So I went over there, and I knew which bullets he was talking about. It's for his hunting rifle. I got those 3 bullets there and gave them to him. He put them in the pocket of his hunting coat and got his rifle. And we left that log cabin, walked down that valley across that river there. Down across to the river. When we got to the river, we couldn't cross directly there because it was flowing pretty swift there. So we walked about a 1/4 of a mile up the river, and there were some rocks that were kind of stretched across the river there, and they were close enough that you could walk on them. So me and Daddy Amos had to be careful, but we walked across the river on those rocks, and we went back into the wilderness there to hunt for turkey. Well, we hadn't walked too far till I looked up in a stand of bushes there, and I saw something moving along the ground. And it was a pretty good sized thing, and I thought, I bet you that's a turkey. And I said to Daddy Amos, I think there's a turkey up there. Can I shoot it? And he said, well, okay. So he reached in his pocket and he got one of those bullets out and he put it in his rifle, handed it over to me. I took that rifle and I took a bead on that shape that I saw in them bushes out there, and bang! Pull that trigger. Well, I handed the rifle back to Daddy Amos and I went running up there to those bushes, and I looked around and couldn't find anything. There wasn't no blood. There was no feathers. There certainly was no turkey. Well, I felt kind of bad. I went back to Daddy Amos and I said, I could have sworn there was a turkey there. And he said, don't worry about it. We got all afternoon to hunt. We'll find one. So we kept walking. We walked and we walked. And after a while, I got to looking, and I looked ahead up there, and up in a tree I saw something flopping around, moving on the branches, and it was very big. And I knew that turkeys would roost in trees sometimes, and I just figured that was a turkey. So I said, Daddy Amos, I think I see a turkey. And I thought, this is a chance to redeem myself. So he said, well, okay. So he reached in his pocket and he got that second bullet, put it in that rifle, handed it to me, and I took a bead on that shape up in that tree. Bang! I pulled that trigger again. I handed that rifle back to Daddy Amos and I ran up to that tree and I looked around. Nothing. There was no blood. There was no feathers. And there certainly was no turkey. Well, I was really feeling bad. I said, Daddy Amos, I'm sorry. He said, don't worry. We got all afternoon. We'll just keep hunting. Well, I'll tell you, friends, the sound of that rifle going off twice must have frightened all the game in the forest, because we walked and we walked. Not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. We couldn't find a thing. Well, the sun started kind of dipping down toward the horizon, and Daddy Amos said, I guess we better turn around and go back. It'll get dark on us, and we need to get home before dark. So we turned around and came back. Well, we came by that tree where I'd seen that shape. And I went up there and looked around again, dug around in the weeds and the leaves, and couldn't find a thing. We walked some more and we got to that little bunch of bushes where I'd seen that first shape. And I went there and dug around and looked around. I thought, well, maybe something ran and I couldn't find it. But I couldn't find a thing. And I was really feeling bad. And then directly we got back to the river, to that place where we were going to cross. And I started to step on the first rock, and Daddy Amos grabbed my arm and said, wait a minute. Very quietly he said, stand very still. I looked across the river. Across the river there was a great big hickory tree. On either side were laurel bushes. As we were standing there on this side of that tree, the branches began to move in that laurel bush, and a big buck deer walked out there and stood beside that tree looking at us. And I thought, well, it's no turkey. But I knew Daddy Amos liked deer meat awful well. So Daddy Amos lowered that rifle, reached in his pocket, got that third and final bullet, and slipped it into the gun. Well, about the time he got that bullet in that gun, those branches on the other side of that hickory tree began to move, and there stepped out on that side of the tree a big black bear. Stood up on its hind legs looking at us. And I thought, what's Daddy Amos going to do? There was a big black bear on this side of the tree, a big buck deer on that side of the tree. What are we going? I knew he liked bear meat as well as he did deer meat. Well, he did one of the strangest, most unusual things I've ever seen. And that's why I call this an unusual meal. Here's what he did. He didn't shoot that bear. And he didn't shoot that deer right off. Here's what he did. He gently lowered that rifle. Then he reached to his side where he had a hunting knife, and he eased that thing out, got it up to his shoulder, and flung that knife across the river. He didn't throw that knife at that bear or that deer. He threw it into that hickory tree. As soon as that knife stuck up in that hickory tree, Daddy Amos raised that rifle up to his shoulder and bang, he shot. But he didn't shoot at that bear, he didn't shoot at that deer, he shot at that knife. That bullet apparently went over there and hit that knife blade right in the middle and split in two. Half of it went this way and half of it went that way. The half that went this way hit that deer right between the eyes and it fell down against that tree as dead as a doornail. The half that went that way hit that bear right between the eyes and that bear fell against the tree on that side as dead as a doornail. Well, Daddy Amos said, I've got to get over there. So he started stepping on those rocks, and I started following him about halfway through the river there. He was so excited, he slipped and fell in the river. And he tried to get out, and he said, help me, I can't seem to get out. So I helped him. It was hard, but I got him up out of the water there, and we waded across. Well, when we got on the other side, I could see why it was so hard for him to get out of the water. Because when he had fallen in that river, about a dozen rainbow trout had swum into the pockets of his coat and stayed there. Well, we didn't realize it at the time, but here lay that bear and here lay that deer. But that knife wasn't there because the force of that bullet hitting that knife had sent that thing a-spinning up in the air. It had spun up in the air, and right at that moment there was a flock of ducks flying over, and that knife spun around through those ducks and killed and dressed out about 6 of them, and they fell right there between that bear and that deer. Well, when that knife came back down to earth, we didn't realize it, but there was a turtle coming up out of the river, and that knife fell right in the back of that turtle and killed it. Well, we also looked there and we realized that the force of that deer and that bear hitting that hickory tree had caused about a half a bushel of hickory nuts to fall down there on the ground. So we cleaned those fish real good. Daddy Amos cleaned out that turkey real good. He took those ducks, he took the best cuts of meat from the bear and the deer and just laid it all in the skins, and he carried the bear skin dragon and I carried the deer skin dragon. We took all that game home for Christmas dinner. And that Christmas dinner we had bear meat, we had deer meat, we had roast duck, we had fried trout, we had turtle soup, and we had hickory nut dressing. That was one of the most unusual Christmas dinners I ever had. But I always felt like Daddy Amos just wasn't as happy as he ought to have been that Christmas, and that was because I'd wasted 2 of those 3 bullets. And that's the end of that.
A merry and bright day. Written by John Thomas Oakes and Tommy Oakes. Illustrated by Allie Daigle. It was not a very merry and bright day in Anyville, California. The sun was shining, the grass was green, the orange and palm trees were swaying, but it wasn't merry and bright. Mary Ann Bright found out why that morning. As she rode through town on her red motorcycle, she saw a traffic cop. "Stop!" he yelled. So Mary Ann stopped and watched a car go by.
Hello there, traffic cop.
Hello, Mary Ann.
Why are you so glum?
Everybody's glum today. The mayor, the citizens, the storekeepers, they've all been grumpy.
Why?
It's December the 24th, Christmas Eve, and there's no snow.
It never snows here. This is California.
I know, but I always dream of a white Christmas.
Well, I'm going up north. Maybe I'll find some there and bring it back.
Traffic cop laughed.
Very funny, Marianne Bright.
Merry Christmas, traffic cop.
Merry Christmas, Marianne.
Marianne drove north. About a mile outside of town was her favorite gas station. She looked at her gauge. It was almost empty.
Better stop.
She thought, and pulled in beside a pump. At the next pump sat a huge truck with a strange machine loaded on the back.
Hi there.
Said Marianne to the driver.
Hi there.
He said back.
What manner of machine is that?
A snow machine. I'm on my way to the dump to unload all the extra snow mix.
Why do you have extra?
The Christmas parade north of here was small and short. They let me go early.
Just then, Mary Ann Bright got one of her ideas. The two of them had a secret conversation. The driver laughed out loud several times. Mary Ann filled up his tank and hers, bought him a hot chocolate, and told him to give her a 15-minute head start. Then she turned around and drove back to Anyville. Traffic cop was standing at his post on the corner, glum and gloomy like everyone else in town. He heard the beep beep of a horn. He looked up and there was Mary Ann Bright again.
I thought you were driving north, Marianne.
I was, but I changed my mind.
Why?
You'll see.
Then Mary Ann shouted cheerfully.
Go get everybody.
Everybody?
Yes, the mayor, the citizens, the storekeepers. Tell everyone to come out on the sidewalks. I'll help.
Traffic cop needed no convincing. He knew Mary Ann Bright well. So Mary Ann walked up one side of the street and traffic cop walked up the other. They were both shouting.
Come outside.
Come outside.
Come outside.
Everyone heard the commotion and came out to see what was happening. When the sidewalks were full, Mary Ann jumped on her motorcycle and roared up the street, playing jingle bells on her horn. On her signal, a much bigger and louder horn sounded from the north end of town. Everyone looked. Coming down the street was a dream come true. The truck rolled slowly right down Main Street. The machine on the truck bed was blowing snow to the right, to the left, to the front, and to the back. Suddenly, it was a white Christmas, just like the ones everyone used to know. The gloomy glumness was gone. People started throwing snowballs, building snowmen, and making snow angels on the street. At the southern city limits, Mary Ann shook hands with the truck driver.
You've given us a Merry Christmas, truck driver.
You given me one too.
See you next year.
I hope so.
Anyville had never seen such a wonderful, merry, and bright and snowy Christmas Eve. The end.
When I was in college years ago, I always had a job at Knox department store at Christmas. I would come home from college and work for about a month at the store. And we didn't have a car back then, so I rode the bus. And I would come in very, very late, and actually we didn't even have street lights back then, and walk home from the bus stop, and it was freezing cold. My mother always went to bed at about 8:30. That was her bedtime. But on the nights when I walked home in the cold, I would get home and there would be my mother waiting. And I would stand over the furnace grate and she would bend down and rub my legs to get them warm again. A happy Christmas memory. Another Christmas memory was when I was about 12 years old. I grew up in Fountain City, and back then, Fountain City was its own little town. In fact, it was the largest unincorporated city in the world. We weren't part of Knoxville, and we were kind of proud of that. But I was about 12 years old, and we lived in a small little house on Burnhurst Drive, actually, for those of you who live there. And there were 6 of us. We had 2 bedrooms, and Mother and Daddy slept in one, and us 3 girls slept in the other. And my brother slept behind the door in the dining room on what we called a rollaway bed. My brother was 12 years older than me, and he was kind of my hero. And he'd gone off to the Marines to Parris Island. And I was feeling kind of sad because I hadn't heard whether or not he was coming home. So I went to bed with my little sister Teresa, and I don't know where my sister Millie was, probably out on a date because she was 10 years older than me. My sister had already gone to sleep, and I was laying there, I guess, waiting for Santa. And yes, I did still believe in Santa at age 12. And I heard something. And I got up out of the bed and tiptoed in the living room, nobody in there. Went in the kitchen. There stood my brother, all dressed up in his Marine uniform. When I walked in, he goes like this. He'd come home to surprise us. I don't remember what I got for Christmas that year, and I don't remember what we ate, but I do remember that my brother came home, my brother Jack.
All our friends were here, and they meant to bring some cheer. They laughed and sang and said they missed you so. We played your favorite game, but it wasn't quite the same. We raised a toast, and then they had to go. They said next time we spoke to say hello. So, hello. I put candles in the window and a garland on the stairs, and those gaudy Santa cushions from your sister on the chairs. I decked the halls and trimmed the tree and plugged in every light, but nothing seemed to make the season bright. The snow is filling up the footprints in the driveway and the lawn, and there's an echo in the hallway now that everybody's gone. I keep staring out the window. I'm alone again tonight. There is nothing here to make the season bright. I remember how the place would shine and sparkle. Love and laughter seemed to fill up every minute. And though the house is like you left it, empty, cold and hollow, like a package by the tree with nothing in it. They tell me time's a healer, I should let you have your space, but I'd rather hold your hand hear your voice and see your face. If time and space could do the trick, you'd think we'd be alright. But without you, I can't make the season bright. Without you, I can't make the season. Without you, I can't.
This is a story that comes from the 1970s from a town in South Carolina. A little boy whose name was Richard Patterson, who at that time was 7 years old. It was Christmas Eve, and Richard's mother was very busy wrapping packages, doing some last-minute food preparation. And the next day that year, Christmas Day, was going to be on a Sunday, and she needed her shoes polished. So she called Richard and she said, "Richard, would you polish my shoes for me?" And he said, "Okay, Mom." So Richard got the shoe polish and polished his mom's shoes. She was so happy with the shoe polishing job that Richard did that she went to her purse and got a shiny brand new quarter and gave it to Richard. The next morning she got up to get ready to go to church, and when she slipped her foot into her shoes, she felt a lump. And she took her foot out and reached down there in the shoe, and there was a slip of paper. That quarter was wrapped up in it, and Richard had written on that slip of paper, "I done it for love." One thing that Christmas is about is things that are done for love. We know that, don't we? So there's a song that we've sung since many of us were very small children. It's one of the best ever. And we want to wish you a Merry Christmas with this little Sunday school song.
Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.